So what do you think when you think about black characters in video games? With it being Black History Month, I figured it'd be a good time to look back at a brief little history of some black characters in video games. I've been playing video games for over 25 years, and when I really think about it, I've seen quite a bit of black characters. For the most part, they've been in kind of supporting roles. I can't lie about that. Some of them might even seem to be a little bit typecast, if you know what I mean. But for the most part, I haven't been offended by any particular black character. One of my earliest memories of a black character in a video game was Balrog from Street Fighter. Of course, he was based off the famous boxer Mike Tyson. In the game, he was a very powerful fighter, and story-wise, he was an enforcer in the main bad guy's organization. He eventually became kind of the template for black fighters in fighting games. They got at least, I want to say 3 or 4 other fighting games with a black fighter as a boxer. Another game that comes to mind when I thought about famous black characters in video games was Barret from Final Fantasy VII. He was the leader of Avalanche, pretty much a terrorist organization that was fighting against a corporation that they thought was hurting the environment. He was a main character in your party, and he was black. The game had him speak, I guess, what was Square's take on Ebonics. It was a little hard to read, it was a little cringe-worthy, but nevertheless, the character grew and had some depth. And that was a common theme with black characters, especially before voice acting came into play. Reading what their dialogue was a little rough at times. Recently, I have been replaying Fatal Fury Mark of the Wolves. In the game, they got this black character named Butt. If he was matched up against this bird character named T-Zop, during a story sequence, he would tell him, "I'm gonna turn you into fried chicken." And in the same game, when he fought the true boss character, that boss character made fun of his speech patterns, as if black people was just of a lower intelligence. And like I say, since voice acting came along, that sort of thing has gotten a lot better, but back then it was a lot more common. A reason for that, I think, is probably because of the directors and the story writers. In my opinion, and I don't mean this as a particularly bad or good thing, but probably the most successful game directors and story writers are either Asian or white. Asian or white, rather, is the better way to say it. And I'm only saying that because it's relevant in terms of that person writing for someone who's different from themselves. If you're Asian and you're writing a story for a black character, whether he's the main character or a supporting character, then you're looking at your take on black people as you write for that character. That doesn't inherently mean you're going to write the character in a negative way or a positive way, but it is just going to be your take on that character, because you're not actually black. And a lot of times when it comes to people who are different from ourselves, rather in terms of race or nationality, when someone's different, we tend to lean toward the mainstream version that's presented to us. And the mainstream version that was presented to most people about blacks, you could kind of see reflected, like in Balrog and in Barret, in those speech patterns, and that's what a lot of people associate with black people. like I say, that's not inherently bad. But as a black man myself, I know there's so much more that could be explored. And like I say, it's not just a black thing. I've seen it done pretty much across the board. Like I say, Fatal Fury again, made by SNK. Terry Bogard, and then a lot of times American white characters, when they're put in Asian-made games, they tend to fall under these stereotypes as well. They might be big, huge people or sneaky, physically imposing, not to be trusted. So I think that's just something that comes with the territory. Not inherently bad, but not inherently good either. I think one way things could get better though, and things have gotten better over the recent years, but things could get even better if there were more black directors and black story writers. Anytime you have that, you get the potential, like even better possibilities for having stories that go beyond typical typecast. In recent years, they've had a lot more games starring black characters. And so you've gotten to see black characters in more interesting situations. The first season of the Telltale Walking Dead game, Watch Dogs 2, Mafia 3, Halo 5 Guardians. Those are pretty major games. Oh yeah, you can't leave out Grand Theft Auto 5 where Franklin was a black character. He was one of the three main characters too. But like I say, all of those games are, fairly successful commercially. So it's showing that there is a market, or that at least it doesn't mean that your game's gonna tank just because you put a black character in the lead. And just because those characters are there, like I say, it's not enough to just be like, hey, we got a guy there, be happy with it. And it's not enough for me to be like, well, I'm not happy, like there's some agenda against us. Because I don't think there necessarily is. That's just why I think there should be more black game directors and black story writers. I saw this kind of indie project come to fruition called Orion, I believe. And it was an African fantasy action RPG set in this lush kingdom with this intense fighting style and cool characters. And I think that's an example of when you have someone black making a game and directing the game and directing the story, you get that opportunity because they could see it. It's not such a foreign concept to them to put someone who looks like them in a cool situation with a unique story. And I'm not saying that's impossible for the Asian creators or the white creators or anybody else. It's just more likely to happen if the creator is black. Just like you get cool Asian characters in Asian-made games and cool white characters in games made by white people. This is something that'll hopefully get better with time. I mean, like I say, games have come such a long way. I am super proud as a black man to see how we're so well represented. Hopefully other groups of people get as well represented one day too. But anyways, that was just my quick look back at over 25 years of gaming and some of the black characters that I came across. Like I say, we've had mostly a good showing, a lot of stereotypes, but like I say, stereotypes aren't inherently bad. I'm hoping in the next 25 years that characters like Lee, characters like Franklin, characters like Barrett and Balrog, and even more variations become the norm, and that this isn't as big of a discussion because it's so normal for black characters to have prevalent roles. I hope you enjoyed this discussion, and until next time, peace.